Given, and it's also
Today, it's never been
putting the squeeze. They make money on
excessive materialism and militarism. We know full well that racism is still that hound of hell.
Man, no, you know what happened? I woke up at 8 to my girl's dismay because I had like the alarm going off like crazy. So I woke up, took a piss, and then I just went back to sleep.
That happened.
Yeah, I know, and it was like bad. And then I woke up again at 8:55, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't take the train. I gotta just Uber this. Yeah.
Oh man, where do you live?
I have a spot in Kensington, in I guess like Prospect Park area.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn, which by the way I highly recommend it. It's a good area. It's
Yeah.
like there's no nightlife, but if you're just into like being low key, cheaper rent, a little bit more space, and like surround yourself with like white liberal English teacher types. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if I want to be there.
Hey, no, it's nice. Are you wait? Is that you're politically?
Oh my gosh,
leaned?
no.
Okay.
I'm not conservative. I'm just like, white liberals annoy me too. I'm
Oh
just
yeah?
Like, you guys are so annoying.
Okay. Well, I mean, no, they're more like English teacher types.
Yeah.
They're not. How should I put it? There's definitely like a lot of like keen wearing. You know, like those outdoor shoes, keen.
Oh no.
You don't know what they
I
are?
don't know what
Okay,
they
so
are.
they're like.
I don't know anything about shoes, and I
Okay.
feel like I missed the whole sneaker trend.
Okay, no,
and
you don't
I'm like,
have to, but
what?
I'm just saying, like, so there's a lot of like English teacher, like lesbian couple types, like older lesbian couple types, you know?
Yeah.
And it's dope. It's like, I
Yeah.
like it, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like Park Slope is right there, so there's a lot of like working class, white liberal families. Some of them work in the creative, some of them just work like regular blue collar jobs. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a good environment. And then there's like pockets of immigrants because Flatbush is right next door. So there's a lot of West Indians like in the peripheral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
I've been over there for about on and off about 3 years.
Yeah.
But I still keep a small spot in Flushing, Queens.
And is
Yeah.
that where you're from, Flushing?
Well, I'm actually from Jackson Heights in Queens.
Oh, cool.
So I grew up in like Jackson Heights, Woodside, Elmhurst, like that area. And my family moved to Flushing when I was like late in high school.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're New Yorker.
I'm
Native
just,
New
Yeah,
Yorker.
just fucking New York as fuck. If you haven't noticed from the accent.
And that was something we talked
Yeah,
about too.
yeah.
But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce you. Jaeki, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Jaeki Cho is a Queens native who's been quoted on MSNBC, The New York Times, BBC Radio, MTV, and Forbes. He co-produced the feature documentary Bad Rap, which premiered at Tribeca Film Festival and is currently streaming on Netflix. He's a partner and creative director for lifestyle boutique Alumni. Before his entrepreneur pursuit, he was a music journalist writing for Complex, Vibe, Billboard, and working as an editor for XXL. He co-hosts a bi-weekly podcast series called $6.99 per pound, where he shares his thoughts on race, culture, politics, and situations.
Yeah, I think that summed it up really well. That sounded like I wrote it.
You did write it.
Yeah. That sounds like something that I would write. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
So we're going to get into a little bit of personal history because we just literally met
Yeah,
just now.
definitely. We just met in person. Yes.
Yeah. I love $6.99 per pound.
Thank you
thought
so
it's, like,
much.
so it's very interesting conversations. I started with the episode with Justin Chan because I was like the most similar, and then went on to like Christy Mack. But every conversation has been so interesting. And how did you come up with the concept of $6.99?
So I wanted to do a podcast that highlighted everyday people that were in different occupations, but just because you doesn't work in like a highly esteemed creative job with like all these accolades, that doesn't mean that it's not interesting. At least for me.
Yeah.
Like, I love like talking to cab drivers.
Yeah.
I love like talking to regular, like if I sit next to like an MTA worker, like I like to just kind of get to know about you know, hey, like, what kind of benefits do you get? You know, and I know to
Yeah.
some people it's like nosy and noisy, but like for me, it's always like something that I was into. So I wanted to do a podcast that kind of highlighted those type of different occupations.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to call it Hot Food Deli
Yeah.
because I used to work at a hot food deli, and a lot of Korean Americans in New York, they kind of like, they monopolized that game. They got it on lock. So it was kind of like an homage to my experience, and also the fact that those hot food delis have like a variety of food options. Like if you go to one in Midtown, they have like pizza, bagel,
Yeah.
everything that you can imagine. You get like a little taste of everything. So I brought this idea to my team that I have right now. Shout out to Jojo, Julie, Marcus, and Michael. And they hated the name.
Really?
They liked the concept, but they hated the name.
Yeah.
So they were like, yo, that just sounds disgusting, like hot food deli. So Julie, our producer / advisor, she was like, you know what? Why don't we call it like $6.99 per pound? It's like the scale, like how much like one of those hot food deli like plates cost. Depending on the neighborhood, like some neighborhoods it goes down as low as like $4.99, or if
Yeah.
you go to like a real like bougie nice neighborhood, it might be like $7.99.
Yeah, I'm
But we-
pretty sure that's the one I had when I worked in Midtown. I
Yeah,
would always
yeah.
go to
It's
this
like
one
a-
place that was like $7.99.
Yeah.
but-
So, but we stuck with $6.99, and which I didn't like the name because
Really?
yeah, like cause 6'9", it was like it sounds like a sexual position. Like it was like I wasn't really into it, but you know, majority like when we had the voting, you know, we decided to go with that name. So that's kind of how this whole podcast thing came about. And I have to give a special shout out to Michael Stewart, who is our producer, for really expediting the process and really putting everything together. Because before he came on board, it was just 4 people with great ideas that didn't really want to take the charge, which tends to be the case with a lot of projects. I'm usually that type of a guy, like that usually takes the charge. But for this particular project, I wanted to kind of be a diva. Like, I just want to come in and talk, yo. So, you know, shout out to Michael for really, you know, putting it together. And he's the reason why we have a bi-weekly podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've also met Michael, and he's great. We actually went to the same school when we found that out during our first meeting. I was
Cornell?
like- yeah.
Oh, you went to Cornell? Nice,
Yeah, and I
nice.
was just like, oh my God, because he said something very specific to Cornell, and I was like, did you
About
go to
that-
Cornell?
About that bridge?
No,
Like,
he said it was like, it was his major, and I was like, that
Oh.
sounds like it's only at Cornell.
Industrial labor relations.
Yeah.
My younger brother also graduated from that school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he
Yeah,
hated it.
I hated it too,
Yeah?
to be
You
honest.
hated
Like, I'm
Cornell?
sorry, Cornell.
Oh
but
man, he hated Cornell.
I hated it too. It was, it's funny, John and I were just talking about this because we were watching about the college admission scandal.
Oh right.
For me, it was very obvious that that was going on.
Yeah, of course, and it's
I'm just
gonna
like, it's not shocking.
it's gonna continue.
Yeah, and I just felt like I feel like I'm much more liberal, and I don't even know if radical is the right word, but I didn't fit into that. Cornell is much more conservative, relatively speaking. Being from California, I felt like it was just like such a huge culture shock, and it was hard for
see.
me to like navigate that. Especially being Asian American too, because I don't know if you haven't ever heard of this, but like West Coast Asians and East Coast Asians
Right.
are very different in certain ways.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely like, you know, similarities, but also our upbringing. It depending on where you are, where
Yeah.
you're from the West Coast though. Like, are you from like California?
Yeah, I'm from Southern California.
Like
and
Valley.
not from San Gabriel Valley, from
Okay.
Riverside, California.
Okay, but that shit is still mad Asian, right?
No, it's not.
not,
It's not
okay.
very Asian.
Okay.
And that's probably I don't know. It was just like very. It was at Cornell was the first time I started thinking more about my identity, because before
Gotcha.
I was just like, yeah, I'm Asian American. I'm proud of that. I don't really
Right.
care. Like, I grew up in a pretty traditional household. My friends never questioned me, like even if they were white or mostly Mexican, because that's like a huge population in Riverside. It was like never like a question of like, why do you do these like weird Oriental things or something like that? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
But I felt like at Cornell, it was when a lot of microaggressions started occurring, where I
see.
started realizing, oh, I am different, but I don't know why
I see.
they're saying it in such like a blanketed liberal way where you're not
Got you.
sure if they're being racist or not. And I feel like that at Cornell was when I really started to understand, like, oh, I am, even if I try to be something I'm not, like, I'll
Right.
always be different.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Wow, that's so interesting that you experienced that at Cornell.
Yeah.
Out of all places.
Yeah.
Not like, like some school in like the Midwest where like, I mean, mind you, Cornell is like in the middle of nowhere. Like
Yeah,
it's
fucking awful.
gloomy as hell.
That's probably another reason
is
why
like
I
all
needed
these
like
hilly-
sunshine.
All these like hilly roads.
Yeah.
I heard when it snows, that shit is like climbing up like a mountain.
Yeah,
to
and
go
they
to
never
class.
close class, even when
Yeah.
it snows. They're just like, you have to go to class at 8 a.m. Yeah, I just think that it was like I can deal with blatant racism
Right.
much better. Like if people call me a chink or whatever and
Right.
like go back to China, I'm like, okay, I like almost understand it more.
Right.
But if it's like, oh, you're like a cool Asian, you're not like a real Asian, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Right,
That
right,
feels
right.
like more racially charged
Right.
to
No,
me.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Wow.
And I felt like that was mostly my experience there. So that was why I didn't like. I don't know why your brother didn't like it. Maybe he experienced
Well, no, I
something
think
similar.
it was a culmination of that without really feeling like I don't know, like he's kind of like me, but the way he talks and his attitude is very similar to me. So for him it was like even like the Asian kids that were in Cornell, like for him it wasn't really a reflection of his upbringing.
Yeah.
Because all his friends are like from third world countries, like like from a lot of the stands in like Eastern Europe to
Right.
like his best friend is from like Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
Like all his homies are like Queens Asian kids that like that kind of speaks like me as a little bit of Latino influence because a lot of his friends are like Colombians and like Central Americans.
Yeah.
So for him, when he went to Cornell, it was like there's like pockets of Asian kids that are very
I think it's
like
privilege.
stereotypical
Yeah.
Asian kids, like like
Yeah.
I had to get this amount in the SATs and like I go to church, I'm in this recital group and yada yada yada. Whereas like his homies were like, hey, yo, Chino, what's going on, man? Like, yo, did you see this Naruto episode? Yo, that shit is crazy, son. Like, like that was like his upbringing. So
Yeah.
he didn't really find that many of those guys in Cornell,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of one of the reasons why he wasn't like feeling the vibe over there.
And what was your background? More of your like, where did you go to school, and how did you find yourself opening Alumni and
Okay.
writing for?
So I grew up.
Complex
I grew
on.
up in. I was born in Korea, South
Mm-hmm.
Korea, and yeah, I know. See, that's so weird. I even have to explain that. Yeah, I'm from South Korea, and then I went to China when I was a kid.
Oh wow.
Because my pops, like, he had like some businesses out there, so I was living out in a city called Nanjing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know it for the Nanjing massacre.
I was just about to
Unfortunately,
say that, yeah.
unfortunately, but it's a beautiful city, a lot of history. It's not too far from Shanghai. So yeah, I was living over there for like 3 years. So at one point in my life, I spoke fluent Chinese like a Chinese person.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then one day my pops was like, yo, we gonna go to America, like, where your relatives are for vacation. And we thought it was going to be vacation, and then that vacation ended up being 20 years in America. so yeah, he kind of
That's a
tricked us.
shock.
Yeah, he tricked us into like saying like, yo, we going to New York just for the summer, and then we just ended up in Queens ever since.
Why didn't he just say we were moving there?
I think he just didn't want us to feel like, because we were young, so he was just like, new environment, new country. Like, it would have been like a huge shock for us. So I think he kind of like eased us into it, and then we realized like, hey, why do we rent out like an apartment like that has like no windows, and like why are we taking our relatives like old furniture? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
This doesn't feel like a vacation.
Yeah. Wait, hold up. Why am I going to school? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like
It was like Airbnb before.
Yeah,
this is just
yeah.
our Airbnb.
Yeah, for sure. So, so I settled in Elmhurst on, this Jackson Heights, Elmhurst area. So I grew up there, and it was like not your, because when you're like Asian kid from Asia looking at America from like the 90s, you see Disney Channel. You see like blonde girls, swimming pool, like the whole shebang.
Yeah.
That's what you see. And then like you come to Queens, like especially in Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, all you see is brown people, Asian people, and like that's all you see, like Latinos, Indians, and Asians.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, this shit ain't America, you know what I mean? Like, yo, and it took a while for me to get assimilated, but that's kind of like was my upbringing from being in that area, and
Right.
like not being exposed to. One of the good things about growing up in that area is that it's so ethnically and culturally diverse that you get exposed to so many different type of food, so many different types of friends, and some people don't always take advantage of it. But I was a lucky case that I was very willingly, I was very magnanimous about it.
Do you feel like your parents wanted you to assimilate more, or were there any
Nah, I think
pressures
they
to
were
do
just
that?
like trying to figure shit out themselves, like
Right.
straight up immigrant lifestyle, like came out here, no real visa, they had to figure all of that out. So it's survival,
Yeah.
straight up immigrant shit, like, yeah, like it was just straight survival. And it just happened to be that I was lucky and fortunate enough that, like they were definitely struggling at first, but compared to a lot of my other Korean American friends that I kind of like grew up with, my family got settled into America a lot quicker than them. So as a result of that, I had access to more academic opportunities. Like for instance, I went to a small private school when for starting from middle school. Like a lot of my friends growing up in Queens, like some of them, they actually became the head of the household since they were like 18. Because their parents are like doing these menial jobs, cash-based jobs, and they can't really fully take care of themselves. So they were like paying rent since they were like 16, 17, 18. Like I was never like spoon-fed, but I didn't have to worry about that. So it allowed me to go out and look for other opportunities. Like if I don't have to worry about my parents' rent, I could like make the same money and try different things. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, definitely.
I think I was fortunate in that sense. And yeah.
How did you get involved in hip hop specifically, or music? Because I saw that you
Right.
were also a music journalist.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of like the dominant culture at the time when I was growing up in that environment. Like we all listened to High 97, Power 105. We all like wanted to buy the latest DJ Clue mixtapes, and we all wanted to be like Jay-Z, Nas, Puffy. These were like our idols growing up, regardless of race. These were the only real like idol type figures that we could really look up to, aspire to, regardless if you're Asian or brown or black.
Do you think it's like that's the idea of survival, like you were talking about how
Yeah,
immigrants
I
are?
think that kind of also had like a correlation to it. The fact that like some of these rap lyrics, there's the part that is, it's like them selling you a fantasy that you wanted to be a part of. The fact that, oh wow, these guys are driving amazing cars, they're surrounded by beautiful women, whatever image that they were portraying, like it could get a kid like excited about that easily.
Yeah.
But then there was the other part too, that they were talking about their struggles. They're talking about discrimination, socio-political, socio-economical disparity, stuff that we as immigrants could also relate to. Maybe not to the degree of like me being an Asian American, of course, like the type of shit that I go through is probably not as, it's very different from like what I'm sure like some of my African American and brown friends go through. But the fact that there was still like a struggle as a person of color, being a minority, that stayed intact.
Yeah.
That was like something that we could all relate to.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
they were doing the type of music and they were portraying a type of lifestyle that I wanted to be associated with. So like a lot of kids, like, you wanted to be a rapper, like, compared to, unlike some of my other friends that it was like a phase for them, like I was just really into it. Like I bought every magazine, every CD, every opportunity I could get my hands on. I wanted to be really involved. And that fanaticism or infatuation with the culture like led me to get affiliated with some Asian American rappers when I was like in high school. And I started like tagging along. I was like the young kid in the squad of these grown men
Yeah.
promoting their music independently. And then I started seeing like, yo, this shit is a struggle, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if I'm really, really ready for this type of lifestyle that they are living. You know, I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying I wasn't sure if it was necessarily for me. So when I got to college, I had this opportunity to start interning at Complex. At the time, it wasn't the media company that it is now. It was still a print publication. It was kind of like my foot in the door. Shout out to my big bro, Donnie, for bringing me on. So under his tutelage and through him, like I was able to get a taste of the music industry, the music media industry. And that's when I was like, okay, like I'm still gonna get access to this culture, but I think at the end of college, I'm still gonna have a job, you know?
Right.
So maybe I should really focus in this.
Yeah.
And keep my dreams and passion of being a rap artist, like more so, not as a back burner, but as like a project that, you know, that I'm gonna do out of passion more
Right.
so than like as a career.
Yeah.
So, you know, that led into my entrance into that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you become a co-producer of Bad Rap? I'm sure it's like
Right.
from all the experiences,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
what led you to meet people like Dumbfounded and Awkwafina at the
Right.
time and really sell them on this documentary?
Right. So, Dumb, when I first met him, I was like a freelance writer in college, and he was like a struggling rap artist that happened to be in New York at the time because of a show that he was hosting. He was like the opening act for this show,
yeah.
and he was like the host. And he had started to pick up some viral internet fame because of this rap battle that he did.
I saw
So
that.
yeah, like against another Asian rapper. So he was like, but he was still fucking broke, you know what I mean? Like, and I saw him when he was in New York, and then I was like, oh shit, like, yo, I know who you are. And then I told him, okay, this is what I do, and we just kind of connected. So we kind of kept that relationship. And like you said, like over the years, like, you know, because a lot of journalists, the next step of them expressing their ideas and storytelling is through a film. Right.
Yeah.
So it was like a natural progression in that process. So when I was an editor at Double XL, like my co-producer / director of Bad Rap, Salima, she was studying for her master's at Columbia at the time. So she reached out to me because she read this article that I wrote about this K-pop artist, G-Dragon. Yeah, so she read this article that I wrote. She's a Southern California African-American girl who got exposed to K-pop when she was at UCLA. So she was like, okay, like, this kid is writing about this famous K-pop star in a major American hip-hop publications. There's something. So she wanted to reach out and kind of hear, why did I do that? And I think she wanted to do a documentary about, like, K-pop. And then we were talking, and I just straight up just told her, like, yo, like, why don't you do a documentary about Asian Americans in hip-hop? So that idea eventually evolved into Bad Rap. So the idea that I told her was like, hey, let's just do like a talking head style documentary music special about Asian Americans in hip hop. And then that idea kind of got molded into a story about 4 characters that all happens to be friends. And when Awkwafina got on board, we needed to find like we were just like talking to all these characters before we kind of really got into like their personal lives in the film. And Awkwafina was one of the characters that we spoke to, but then we kind of felt like it made perfect sense for her story to be part of the narrative. I don't know if you've seen the film, but there's a scene where I'm like kind of like undermining her capabilities between me and Dumb. And yo, sorry, Jaeki. Nora, I apologize.
That was actually something I wanted to ask you about, so I'm glad
like
you just brought it up.
Now she's, you know, she's still reachable, you know what I mean? But yeah, she's out here, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very, I respect, what she's been able to do. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, so
Because that was actually a scene that really stood out to me because I wanted to ask. Because I don't remember who said this, but it was kind of like this idea like, oh, of course, like a cute hipster girl gets like more popularity. And like,
Right.
But yeah, I was wondering like where you stand on that now. And I didn't even remember if it was
to be
you
honest,
that said
yeah,
that.
I did say that.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I still believe there's like a marketability for being being a woman, an Asian American woman with a unique taste. Like even though like what I said about her like being this cute hipster girl, like it sounds very undermining, but that in itself, I know I'm sounding like I'm very defending myself, but like that in
it's totally
itself,
fine.
like that in itself, it is like an anomaly at the time, especially.
Yeah.
So like as a marketer, somebody who would want to like this is like this is like a gem, like this is a gold mine. Like if you're like a producer or whatever, like like why would you wait? Like this is like such a good product that's sellable.
Yeah.
So I still stand behind that in terms of that, but like maybe the way I said it, the semantics, where it could have been more mindful.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, obviously, I'm an Asian American woman, so I saw it as like, is it like the difference between like how Asian men are perceived in media and how Asian women are inherently more like exotic and like
Totally, and
that.
that kind of plays a part in it too. Maybe the dynamics are evolving, but for the most part, you still see way more Asian American female presence in media. Not necessarily for all the right reasons, but the presence itself, it's much more out there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, of course, the reasoning behind it is unfortunate.
Right.
Oftentimes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Just the
it's
fact that
definitely
like
about hypersexuality.
yeah. The fact that like every dude who's listening to this could name like at least 3 Asian American female porn stars. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we could all do that. Maybe not. Okay, maybe unfortunate is not the right term, but it's like that's just a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just gets much more deeper than like me just saying like, yeah, because she's a woman. It's like, that's not. I don't think that was really my intention, but the fact that Nora herself was a very interesting anomaly. That was somebody that's just very marketable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And relatable too.
Yep.
And by the way, I didn't want to like grill you on this one thing, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, you can, because I'm
like...
open to all criticism, especially because I'm late today.
Oh yeah, by the way, listeners, he
Yeah.
overslept.
I know
No.
I overslept, yes.
No worries. No, I just wanted to know like what your thoughts are now because she's obviously so big now.
Yeah,
It,
for sure.
Like almost came overnight. It felt like with Crazy
Right,
Rich Asians
right.
and all the other movies.
I do believe
yeah.
that, like, it was like, I think it was like Snoop Dogg said in like an interview, like, you don't get to choose this life, the life chooses you. I believe in that a little bit. Like, there's definitely people that are born with a level of star quality. And I know a lot of friends around me that have that, but Nora definitely is one of them. She's so smart, like, and if you meet her in person, like, she's very smart, very articulate, and has a very unique perspective on all things.
Yeah.
So I just think that it only makes sense that she's getting all these opportunities that she is getting.
For sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
As someone who followed her since her My Badge music video, I'm
right.
definitely very proud of her from afar, just like a proud fan.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. Like, and I feel like musically, I mean, not to like dwell on Nora for the rest of this podcast, but like musically, I still feel like her market is still very niche, but her as a personality, as an entire package, I always thought that she is gonna be big.
Right.
Yeah. So I think even in that statement when I made in the film, I was talking specifically musically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even, I mean, I also followed Dumbfounded since he was still rap battling. I think he still is rap battling,
Yeah.
and I've been to his concerts and everything. So
Nice.
I do think he is just on the cusp of becoming mainstream as well, if not already.
Right.
Because I know he's still, maybe you know more than me, he's about to there's about to be like a rap battle movie, and he's in it as
Yeah,
well.
I think that movie. Yeah, the
Is it already
movie.
came
Yeah,
out?
I don't think it had like a major theatrical release.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie did come out, and yeah, he's consistently working. I talk to that fool like every day. We're all in like a group chat together.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe there will be like a bad rap too, and see where are they now? Because that was.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know if my partner Salima and I want to do that yet, because we're like, yo, let's stop talking about rappers. Let's just do our own thing for a while. But
Yeah, I thought it brought in really interesting conversation because, I felt like a lot growing up in the 90s, a lot of Asian Americans I knew were also very attracted to hip hop.
Right.
And
it was just a dominant culture at the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
and I feel like no one really talks about that or like why there is that draw to hip hop. And
Right.
like you were saying earlier, it is about the solidarity of struggling, you
Right.
know? So I thought it was important to show that like, hey, Asian Americans are also a part of this conversation,
sure,
even though it
definitely.
feels like we're always like invisible and not talking so much and being the quote unquote model minority, and
Right.
being the stereotypical Asian of being good at math or something.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
by the way, I think being good at math is fucking great.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
bad at it.
Yeah, I suck at math. Like, I was always the kid. I was like in all the AP classes, but I was like the worst in the AP classes.
Yeah.
So by the time I get to calculus, I wasn't even accepted into that class. So I got up to like pre-cal, and then like I was fucking struggling, man.
Yeah,
Straight
it's
up.
hard.
I had this one time, my report card came, and it was like 3 A's and 2 F's. It was
A
like
nightmare still.
so it was like 3 A's, like Spanish A, history A, English A, and then like chemistry and like geometry F. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I sucked at math, yo.
Yeah, I was very much like a neurotic person, so I was just like very much straight A's. But my parents were actually the flip. They were just like, you can
Chill.
chill. They
Yeah.
were just like, give us a beat every so often.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Some straight-
they were like worried about how much stress I put on myself, and I
Right.
don't know if it's because of the stereotypes I received of like the messaging I got from media or like, you
Like
know,
you had to be good.
I had to be good or
Okay.
I had to be like 100% because my parents were also like not like super wealthy. So I was like, maybe, I think now as an adult looking back, I was like, maybe that was my way of like, oh, I can provide for them
Oh,
after if I
wow.
just like work 10 times harder than everyone.
So
and
you
then,
had like this
get to a
inner
good school.
burden without you
Yeah.
even knowing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And I think it was actually when I did go to college where I was just like, oh, this doesn't, like, it's not fulfilling to me. And even after leaving college, I was like working at like, safe tech jobs. And I was just
Hey,
like,
good for you.
yeah, this is, it feels awful. And I was just like, nope, I'm just going to quit everything and become a creative and
Wow.
do the struggle.
So this is what happened.
yeah,
This
and
is
this is what happened.
this is the result. This
Yes.
podcast.
Well, the podcast started for a lot of. I've always been like very passionate about representation and very passionate about like putting people of color on the forefront because
Right.
I think we do need to decolonize our narratives that we've placed on ourselves of like not everything is whitewashed and a lot of history is whitewashed.
Right.
So it was like from the 2016 election. I was just so angry, and I didn't know what to do with that anger.
Nah,
it was
that's-
like rage,
That's fair because
Yeah.
you're obviously not the only person.
right?
And especially I feel like people of color, especially females that are people of color, definitely were heavily influenced by that election.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The election was bad. The result was bad, but as a result, out of the fire, this fucking new movement just started growing out
Yeah,
of
it was like the last straw. Almost like we've been put through so much. I was just like, you know what? I'm fucking sick of this. I'm sick of feeling like I have to be, especially like being Asian American, I'm like a quiet Asian
Right,
woman,
right.
and like being and working in a lot of tech companies and being put in that box over and over again. I was just so angry. I was just like, I don't know what to do with this rage, so I'm just going to channel it into a
Right.
history podcast.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
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 Appreciate you bringing me on.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think our topic with Asian American rappers ties in perfectly with your
Right.
historical figure or topic that you brought in. Right.
I think I'm just gonna give a breakdown of like Asian Americans in hip hop instead of just focusing on one person, because
Yeah.
I don't think there's that much written or documented about these individual figures
Yeah.
thoroughly enough for me to just like go deeply into
Yeah.
one person.
That
But
makes sense.
yeah. So like in any like in any popular culture, I think Asian Americans have always had a place in it, whether it was through whether as a performers or whether as people behind the scenes. But I feel like there's more tends to be cases where they have participated as people behind the scenes. So like if you look at like some of the credits of like former like record label releases from the 80s when like hip hop really started becoming a mainstream culture, you see like, okay, A&R was produced by John Lee, like this guy San Kim was like an A&R for this Tommy Boy record release. So you start wondering like, okay, who the fuck are these people? Like how did these guys even, get into this type of music? But I think it has a lot to do with the post-war, post-war. By post-war, I mean like the World War II. So the U.S. influence had a great impact in modern Asian culture. Like in Asia, they were stationed in Japan for a long time. They were stationed in the Philippines. They were stationed in pretty much all over Asia except for China, and South Korea as well. So a lot of these military bases they needed entertainment. So a lot of local musicians got influenced by whatever music that was popular at the time, whether it was Elvis Presley to James Brown to rock music. They started accepting these American culture and created their own versions of it. So even if you go to Japan or Korea, like you see like 60s, 70s records that sounds like any popular releases from America at the time with local artists.
Yeah.
Like-
My grandma used to love karaoke, and I love karaoke
Right.
too. Not to feed into stereotype,
Yeah.
but I do. But one of her favorite songs, and it's like from the 1930s or something. She sings it, and it sounds like something you would hear in the 1930s here in America, like the
Right.
jazz and like, it's just
Right.
like, and that's not something we usually think about in America because it's like, oh, it's like some weird like I said, Oriental music,
Right,
quote
right.
unquote, that stereotypical
Yeah.
music.
And then it just kind of shows that, in a way, it just shows like how much American culture have taken over the world without us even like, just like subconsciously, like it just like took over every part of our lives in a way.
Right.
So I think that really started to get magnified once we started getting into like the modern society in the 60s and the 70s. And then I think a lot of these immigrants that were moving into America, like especially Korean Americans and Chinese Americans, that the Chinese Americans have always been here, like since like the early 1900s or late 1800s. Yeah, so like they've always been here, and then going through like Chinese excommunication, like what is it?
Chinese Exclusion
Yeah,
Act.
Chinese exclusion. I said excommunication, like Chinese
Pretty much
Exclusion
the
Act.
same, yeah.
Chinese Exclusion Act, and then it took them a long time for them to really get settled into the American society. But through that, like these kids, they were prominent Chinese guys that were involved in the activism culture in the 60s, 70s, the Yellow Peril, to artists that were hippies. So they were always part of the mainstream American culture because it's just
Right.
inevitable, right?
Right.
And as that was happening, I think it was only going to happen with hip hop as well,
Yeah.
right? Especially Asian American immigrants that probably had like businesses in predominantly black neighborhoods, right? So if you're going to have a fish market in the Bronx and like your son is there like after school and the music of the era is like hip hop, well, that kid is probably going to be exposed to hip hop.
Does it ever frustrate you, or do you ever feel any type of way actually where you know all this history of like when Asian Americans stood in solidarity with the civil rights movement, for
Right.
example. And now it seems like that's not so much the case. Like it's very rare that you see it.
I think at the time, but it's kind of hard to argue because, well, first of all, I wasn't there like in the 60s and 70s. So yeah, we hear about like Eri Kochiyama, like, you know, being there like when Malcolm X was, you know, when Malcolm X got assassinated. And like we hear about all these, we hear about the highlights in the history. So
Right.
at the time, maybe they were the radicals. Maybe they were the people that the Asian community looked at it like, why are you like into all this black shit? Like, you know, they probably looked at them like that,
Yeah.
you know? So who knows? Maybe like majority of Asian Americans even back then were like, nah, like we got to take care of ourselves first. I can't say it frustrates me because everybody has a different experience. Like some of my homies that grew up around me in Queens, they don't feel the same type of sentiment towards other people of color because a lot of them, they kind of grew up in this small bubble, like this Asian bubble.
Right.
And I'm sure it's the same case in California as well.
Oh yeah, definitely
Yeah.
like San Gabriel
Yeah,
Valley.
yeah,
bubble
yeah.
and-
Like all those,
Yeah.
like where if you go to a school that's like 95% Asian and you just fucking drink bubble tea all day, like, and you never
Right.
got exposed to like other people of color, your perspectives and things are going to be relatively skewed. So I can't necessarily get mad at them,
Yeah.
but I do think it's important to continue that dialogue.
Right.
Like, yeah, like there needs to be a sense of solidarity in all people of color.
Yeah.
And it needs to be continuously emphasized. Like for instance, like the whole model minority myth. Yeah,
I
that
just
shit.
rolled my eyes.
that shit definitely frustrates me as well. But in a way, like a lot of Asian Americans also, you know, they kind of like accept that myth.
Yeah.
Or they
it's
want to
like
be
they
a
buy
part of
into
that
it.
myth. Yeah, they buy into it. So, and I can't necessarily blame all of them for wanting to be a part of that because, yo, like, if it's a privilege, right? Like, for instance, like, if I'm like, if I have like a nice car and I'm like driving through a part of Brooklyn at a certain time of the day, the likelihood of the police pulling me over is probably a lot lower than like somebody who's black or Latino. That's just a fact. And that's a privilege that I have. And it's the fact that you got to understand your privilege and trying to relay that and try to figure out a way for the betterment of the society as a whole. That's kind of like, I feel like what Asian Americans should really believe in and look into. But the fact that you don't even understand that you have the privilege, or the fact that even if you have the privilege and you're not trying to do it for the betterment of the society or the community as a whole, I think that's kind of what I think it needs to be improved upon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think this also ties into something we were talking about on the phone of I feel like a lot of Asian Americans, especially in hip hop or in hip hop culture, get criticized for sort of, I don't know how to really put this, but like sort of wearing like the costume and then
Right.
taking it off whenever
Yeah.
it's convenient.
And I think they do.
Yeah.
A lot of them do. And I don't think they do it in a, I don't think all of them do it in a malicious way. Because like I said, like hip hop culture was for a lot of these kids the dominant culture. Now, like, can you expect every one of these kids to know the fucking history and like why they can't do certain things? I don't necessarily expect them to, but like, I just don't like it when people kind of like paint all of us in one single stroke.
For sure.
Like, for instance, like, this Chinese rap group like Higher Brothers, right? Like they're based in Chengdu. They're part of 88 Rising. Or like this kid Rich Sugar, right? Or Rich
think
Brian.
he's Rich
Yeah,
Brian
or
now,
whatever.
yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, you know, they're not even from America to begin with.
Right.
And whatever they see, their infatuation with hip hop culture is very surface level.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what they see on media, and then they're just gonna, and then they want to participate, or they're emulating what they're
Yeah.
seeing, right? Which is kind of like the first form of adulation. When you first get into something, you emulate it without really understanding the deeper context of it.
Right.
So then their emulation got them a lot of popularity. So it is people that understand that to kind of check them, like, okay, yo, cool, you're good at rapping, but maybe you shouldn't call yourself Rich Sugar.
Yeah, that was...
That's not really. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessarily. It's of course like, so people can't necessarily just argue like, yo, you should have known better. It was like, yeah, like maybe, but then
Yeah.
again, like, this kid is like 16. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm pretty
and like,
sure he said he learned English from all these
like
hip-hop
rapping.
videos.
Yeah, like me too.
rappers,
Like
yeah.
I learned English. I picked up, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 9 or 10, and then I me listening to music or rap music especially, like, had a huge influence on the way I talk, the way
Yeah.
I see the world, So yeah, so I don't, so for those people that are putting on the costume, yeah, like, I don't think all of them has like a malicious intention. It's not like, yo, like, I'm gonna put on this costume and I'm all of a sudden gonna make a shitload of money. I think it really comes from a form of like adulation, like, yo, like, that they want to be a part of something, but they just kind of see the surface level things, and then they kind of do it without fully understanding it. Now, if somebody else checks you, like, yo, like, you need to fully understand it, and they're like, nah, fuck you,
Right.
that's when the problem rises.
Right, definitely.
So if somebody who really understands the culture, like, tells you, like, okay, what you're doing right now, it's not cool, you should really listen.
Right.
And I think what the fact that they're not listening is what really, the fact that some of them are not listening is what bothers me. But if you're like a K-pop artist and your label is telling you, okay, where it is, put this on, rap like this, act like this,
Yeah.
for that kid, it's like, yo, he or she doesn't have like that cultural context. So how can you expect them to just, like, I shouldn't like act a certain way or walk a certain way because historically, like, the cultural context of the socioeconomics of like African Americans, like, yo, like, how could they know all this shit? So it's really up to people like me or people that maybe know this shit that's around them to check them and tell them, like, okay, this is the reason why you shouldn't do it.
Right.
And for those kids that are doing that, to listen instead
Yeah.
of saying like, okay, I'm making money now, so I ain't got to do shit, So that's when the problem rises.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, we went on a
I
tangent here,
know.
but
We went on a tangent.
but I think
Yeah.
that's like a really, really good point because it is the difference between being Asian and being Asian American.
Right.
Also, because when you were talking about they don't have the context of it, it reminded me of when Scarlett Johansson played Ghost in the Shell.
Right.
And they did like these interviews in Japan or wherever,
And they were like, yo, that's dope.
they're just like, oh, I don't care, but it's just because they're from
They don't
such
lack
a
context. Yeah,
homogenous
exactly.
place.
They're from a homogenous place. And for
Yeah.
them, like, growing up, seeing like a white face or a black face on American TV is like a form of something that they aspire to or that they looked up to. Or for them, it's like, it's just a completely different culture.
Yeah.
It's a completely different world. And that movie, Ghost in the Shell, for them, it was like, it's an American movie.
Right.
They don't look at it like, okay, this character, it's representing for part of the Asian diaspora. Like, they don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and like, fair enough,
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm glad that a lot of these conversations are coming out now. Like, yeah, there is a difference between being Asian from Asia and
Yeah.
Asian America because
Yeah.
for such a long time I feel like we've been lumped into this monolith of just like, oh, you're just Asian.
Right.
And it's just like, no,
No-
there are so many differences.
Exactly. And I also,
Yeah.
I was having this conversation. I was like, yo, like, I feel like America is like this fucking weird science project or socioeconomic project. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the Illuminati or God or whoever decided, it's like, yo, listen, like, let's do this shit real quick, right? Let's get a big chunk of land, put mad different people in there,
Yeah.
and see what the fuck happens.
Now that you say that, it
And
does
then-
feel like
and
the
it's
Hunger
like-
Games more and more.
Yeah, it's like, and that's kind of what America is, I think.
Yeah.
And then through this science project, through this experiment, of course, you get some of the greatest cultural and technological advancements within the last few centuries because there's so much different ideas like converging and different people making babies together and like creating super babies, you know, like all this shit is happening, you know?
Right.
But then again, there's also going to be socioeconomic problems, you know? So if there's a pro, there's always a con, you know, it's yin and yang. So I think that's kind of how I look at America now. Like, yo, who the fuck came up with this idea that it was going to be a cool idea to have all these fucking different immigrants all live together?
Yeah, that's
Like,
interesting.
all these
I always
different
think
races.
that we're like being constantly haunted by the indigenous peoples that were killed here. I'm just
Right.
like, I don't like whenever I go upstate New York, I'm like, it's like haunted up here. It feels off. I was just telling John, I'm like, I hate the woods. I just feel like it's haunted.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Because these people are like, you know, like, and I'm a spiritual person, and a lot of these Native Americans, they did like spiritual rituals in a lot of
Yeah.
these places in upstate New York. Like, for instance, they say Alpine in New Jersey is apparently where a lot of Native Americans had like ancient ceremonies when they were like conversing with the gods.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why like I feel like that area is where all these rich people live because they got good energy out there.
Really? I didn't even think about
You know what I'm
that.
saying? Like every ball player, rapper, comedian, whoever makes money in New York, they all move to Alpine in Jersey.
Oh.
Like right facing the Hudson Valley and shit.
Damn.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that.
You know
That's
what I'm saying?
crazy.
Yeah. So I feel like it's all correlated, you know?
Yeah, I just think all the bad shit in America that's happening, it's like all the curses that just put on the land.
I
It's like,
believe that
but
too.
I'm just like, we kind of deserve it as a
Yeah, I
country
believe
right
that
now.
too. But yeah, so where were we?
We were talking about how we got here was we were talking about how a lot of military was stationed in Asia, so it was inevitable that music
Yeah,
influenced
like
a lot of
a
Asian
lot of like
cultures.
American music started
Right.
influencing Asian culture, and I think that's kind of like that's how like genres like K-pop and J-pop really started to develop. But in America, Asian Americans were always part of the overall American experience. You know, even though we were a very small, tiny population of the culture, like okay, if hip hop music is popular amongst 100 kids, that means at least 5 of them are Asians. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so it was like inevitable for us to get exposed to that. And I think, you know, we could talk about like Fresh Kid Ice, who was part of Two Live Crew. Rest in peace to this gentleman. You know, he was of Chinese descent.
He was from Riverside, California.
Oh yeah. He was from the West Coast, but they
Yeah.
moved to Miami. So like, yeah.
I didn't know that. I just
Yeah.
saw, oh, Riverside, yes.
Yeah. So they moved out to Miami, and then they started pursuing his music. And you know, he was of Asian descent, but I mean, at the time, like the overall cultural landscape didn't really like made sense for him to be like, I'm Asian and I'm proud, you know. So like, I think he never really represented that. But like I said earlier, there were always like music industry people that, you know, that were of Asian descent. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like in a very small scale. But they like, for instance, okay, so a lot of it I think started to really spark in the West Coast first for Asian Americans in hip hop. A lot of these South Asian communities in the West Coast, like Filipino communities in like the Bay Area. Same thing with Filipino communities in like Los Angeles and like areas like that. You know, Filipino culture, for instance, like it's like a hodgepodge of different Western cultures, right? So I think you know, they like, compared to like Chinese, Japanese, and Asian cultures, like they had a taste of Western culture because of the fact that, you know, it was colonized by Spain and then it was pretty much colonized by America for a long time. So they always had like a correlation to music, to dancing, to that type of elements. So I think those immigrant communities in the West Coast, especially of Filipinos, like consisted of Filipinos, they really started to embrace whatever dominant popular culture was at the times, which was hip hop. So you see a lot of like Filipino DJs really starting to like come up during that scene, like
And this was
during the 80s,
yeah.
80s and the early 90s. So most notably like DJs like DJ Qbert, who is like arguably the fucking GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes down to like scratch amongst like scratch DJs. Like, and he's Filipino, and you know, he pretty much influenced the entire scratch DJ community, which is an element of hip hop.
Right.
And Yeah, like so, and a lot of those like communities, those brown island communities, they were immigrants, they were struggling. So I feel like that correlation also allowed them to feel a connection to what African American rappers were talking about.
Right.
So like there was a rap group that came out in the early 90s named Master Plan. They consisted of mostly like Filipino American rappers. And some of the more like I said, like the Filipino DJ community was so strong and dominant in the West Coast. Like DJ Babu of the Beat Junkies. These guys are all Filipino cats that just grew up around hip hop. And I feel like in the Bay Area, especially, they embrace diversity faster than like some of the more monolithic cities in the East Coast.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like because brown people, Asian people, black people, white people, they all kind of like, maybe it was the drugs in the 70s. I don't know what it was,
Yeah.
but like it just all kind of converged together.
Yeah.
And I feel like that solidarity and that understanding of different cultures still pretty much persist in like San Francisco.
Yeah.
Or Oakland,
Yeah,
areas like that.
It's such a shame because, like, you're right. I feel like the Bay Area is like one of those utopia places where like a lot of progress happens.
Right.
And now with like all the tech companies, it's like not the same anymore.
Right.
It's like,
but maybe
feels
that's
awful. Yeah.
kind of what, brought into tech companies. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
that
actually
sense
don't
of
know.
like freedom and creativity is what really inspired those type of people. So I think Bay Area really kind of was like the torchbearer, like kind of took the charge for Asian Americans to really take a strong stand in hip hop culture in America.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think in the East Coast in the music industry, like Asian American kids are like overachievers, and a lot of them, they're really great at being in managerial positions because culturally, like we were taught that the nail that sticks out that get punched in.
Right.
So I think like subconsciously it probably had like influences on us not to be people in the forefront, but we're really fucking good at accounting. Like we're really good at making sure your schedule's on point. We're
Right.
really good at making sure that the contract looks right.
Yeah.
And every industry needs those type of personnel, and same thing with the music industry.
Yeah.
So I think like a very distinguished music manager from the early 90s is this lady named Sophia Chang. She's a Canadian Korean who moved to New York, infatuated with hip hop, and managed some of the most like prominent hip hop and African American acts like Wu-Tang Clan. Like it was a Korean American lady who managed arguably the greatest hip hop group of all time.
Yeah.
like Wu-Tang
That's
Clan.
so cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and then she also managed D'Angelo at one point. She worked with Raphael Sadiq. Like, and this lady, like, people in the industry knows her.
Yeah.
And she was like the token Asian lady for a long time. But like, people even in the Asian industry Asian American community doesn't really know about her.
Yeah. I had no idea
but
about
she,
that.
and I think. So there's that lady that was there, and then I think in the 90s that's when like Asian American kids really started to participate more and more in hip hop. Not only because like it became more of a mainstream culture, but the babies that were born in the 70s in America, by the time it got to the 90s, they really started to assimilate more and more. So like, like in the magazine, like in the hip hop journalism world, like this lady Minya O, who went by Miss Info. She was like a writer that was working at The Source, which was like arguably at one point it was like the defining hip hop magazine of its era.
Right.
And then she wrote like the review for Nas's Illmatic and gave it the 5 mics rating, which kind of like solidified and made that album into a classic, or solidify the album's classic status. So she had like a say in that, and it was like a Korean American girl from Chicago that did that. That like gave the stamp of approval for like the greatest hip hop album of all time. And like
so
people
cool.
doesn't know about that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
and
and like
This is making me wonder, like, why wasn't there more cover? Like, I know why,
Right.
but like also like it kind of angers me. I'm just like, this is so cool.
And also like Snoop Dogg's business partner and manager is a Korean American gentleman named Ted Chung. So he's been with Snoop since like the late 90s and kind of helped grow Snoop his business empire. and he's a Korean American cat from LA. You know what I mean? And he was an MC and like a host of many hip hop events within his community for a long time. And then, you know, he figured it out and started working with Snoop. And now he has like a solid music business advertising foundation that continuously grows like Snoop's business. And Snoop is one of the arguably the top 10 greatest, most successful rappers of all time. And the guy behind him is, you know, is an Asian guy, is a Korean American guy. So yeah, that's like more so in the behind the scenes elements. But then like in the mid to late 90s, this group consisted of 3 college students who was going to, I believe, Penn State and Philadelphia, named the Mountain Brothers, came together. And they were like the first Asian American rap group that really kind of put Asian Americans on the map. But not, they weren't like waving like, yo, we're Asians.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
but like their name was Mountain Brothers, which was like kind of like an homage to this ancient Chinese novel called Shehu Dran, which is like the story of 108 bandits.
Wow.
And they kind of named themselves Mountain Brothers, which was like kind of like a reference to that. But they were like just 3 Asian American guys that were fucking amazing at rapping without mentioning that they're Asian. Like if you listen to them, you can't tell like, oh, these guys are Asian or these guys are black. Like they were just nice.
Yeah.
And the story goes that these guys got a record label deal where like a lot of the labels heard their mixtapes were demos. And they were like, yo, like, y'all sound dope. Like, send us some pictures. Like, let's talk. And when they had the meetings, they found out that, yo, y'all Chinese? You know? And they would, like, not get these deals. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Yeah. And then they kind of, like, they participated in a competition hosted by Sprite to, like, rap about Sprite. And then they won. And most people didn't know that they were Asians. Not until they...
Yeah,
like because at this time it wasn't like YouTube and like, you know, video chat and shit like that. Yo, you send them like a demo and you don't know, like,
right,
unless you say that prominently, yo, Scott Jung, aka Chops, Chinese American. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So they were like the first, they were like the pioneers when it came down to like Asian American representation in hip hop.
Yeah.
And then these guys, they had like minor independent success. And then like 2 of them are like in the medical field now, no surprise. And one of them, Chops, like he's still making music as a living.
That's great.
Yeah. So he prominently, like one of his most successful records was he did a record with the Lonely Island, the Saturday Night Live guys, and with Nicki Minaj.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's a full-time musician, producer, making a living doing that. The 2 other guys, they're dads. No, one of them is a dad, and one of them is a collector of fine chairs and art, and he works in the medical field.
Very specific.
Shout out to Chris. Parallels. So yeah, those guys, those are like my OGs, like people that I looked up to, you know, like. And another thing that I think really helped the spread of Asian American hip hop culture is the internet.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's a stereotype, but yo, Asian cats are like fucking ahead of the trend when it came down to like fucking technology and shit.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like
a lot of the first YouTube
the
creators
first
were
YouTube
Asian.
wave was
Yeah.
Asians, like the first forum wave, Zanga and all this shit was like
I was a huge Zanga
yeah,
user.
it was all like, yo, like all of our white friends were like, yo, what the fuck y'all doing? And we already knew how to fucking put together HTML codes and shit.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was just
exactly.
part of our identity. And I think through the proliferation of the web, these Asian American hip hop forums, prominently Asian raps, like really kind of became this hub where all these Asian American cats like could say like, hey, I rap. Oh shit, you're from like Minnesota and you're Asian and you rap. Oh, you're from California, you rap. Oh, you're from like Queens. And you know, it was like a place where all these guys started to like come together, and then the culmination of that really started to happen. And from that era, like MC Jin notably like came out, and his success and like Freestyle Friday and BET's 106 and Park, that shit was kind of like for a lot of Asian American kids that were aware of their identity and like somewhat into hip hop, that moment was like the coming of Christ.
I remember
You know?
because my brother was very obsessed with hip hop, and so growing up, I would hear it all the time. There is this one moment in my childhood where he made me throw up the West Side symbol out the car because I was like 4. I was like, I don't know what this means, and he was just like, that would be so cool if you did that.
Yeah. So he
But I
tricked you into
remember-
doing some wild shit. Okay.
Exactly. But I remember when Jin came out, he was just like, it was like such a big deal.
It was like a cosmic shift because one, you don't even get to see that many Asian people on television. And the fact that it was BET, like Black Entertainment Television, and on the show at the time, it was arguably the most popular hip hop oriented shows. And you got this Asian guy that's just killing it week after week for 7 weeks straight. That shit was like watching like South Korea going to World Cup in 2002 for me. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, yo, every week we were like rooting this guy on, you know? And like, yeah, that kind of really, I think, influenced an entire generation of guys around my age, like guys that were born in the late 80s, you know, like watching him saying like, okay, like that could be me, or that should have been me.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like, so that guy really gave us the fuel and the encouragement to pursue that. And of course, like whatever success that he's attained wasn't, you know, to the degree that I'm sure we all hoped him to have, even though I think, you know, what he did, it was incredible. So that's generations that came after him. It gave us the courage to be like, okay, like I could do this.
Right. Exactly.
And not only for artists to like put out music themselves, but also people like me and my boy, like for instance, my boy Mikey Fresh, he works at Genius now, but he was like a hip hop writer all throughout his career. He worked at The Source, he worked at Vibe, he worked at all these publications, and he was like, so he was influenced by seeing Jim. Like, okay, shit, like I could do this hip hop journalism shit. I could work in the music industry. Like, a lot of, you know, like you see more and more of that. And like in the music industry, like these kids coming up, like, or at least they're in my generation. I'm like, I turned 30 today.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So like, you know, so yeah, I think that. And then also the next wave was really YouTube. For Asian Americans in hip hop, because like I said about Asian forums, like YouTube was like the kind of like another tool for minorities that didn't really have a voice to really just dominate like a platform to communicate what they wanted to say. So like, you know, guys like Tim De La Ghetto, you know, who's not like a rapper full time, but he's a comedian and a personality that kind of like, that espouses that hip hop culture and identity. Also like had a very strong like influence in spreading that awareness. Even guys like Dumbfounded, you know, like if it wasn't for YouTube, if it wasn't for that platform, like he wouldn't have had like a successful career that he has had, you know?
Right.
So I think the kids that grew up watching that, like on YouTube, are now the kids that are putting out music and doing their thing right now.
Yeah.
So for a lot of these kids that just had like access to this information, platforms like YouTube and Instagram, like for them, it's no longer weird to see an Asian American rapper.
Yeah.
For them, it's like, yo, that's all I grew up on. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like it's no
exactly.
longer like, for like young Jaeki, like seeing Jin was like, oh shit, this is like crazy. For them, like, oh, Asian American rapper ABC, like, okay, cool, like, so, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's no
Exactly.
longer like an anomaly anymore. So
Yeah.
for it to come to this level, it took a couple internet age cultural revolutions, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it has become much more normalized, I think, in
Yeah.
the Asian American community because like I was saying, like I also knew that hip hop was like very influential for Asian Americans because I grew up with my brother, basically. But what do you think about people who criticize that, who are just like, oh, like who feel like Asian Americans have like come out of nowhere in the hip hop community? Like what?
Yeah, like how I said, I don't think they came out of nowhere. So
Yeah,
one thing, first
exactly.
things first, like, they didn't come out of nowhere. Like I said, like Sophia Chang to Minya O and all these like Asian American people have participated in hip hop in some form or another. Now, were the numbers huge? No, it was very small, but in whatever contributions they made a form of contribution.
Definitely.
And I think the criticisms really come from some people feel like they have a sense of ownership to hip hop culture because of their race, because of which I also get, because like especially for certain African Americans, every culture that they produced or created in some form or another has been pillaged,
Yeah.
mostly by white America, but like has been pillaged and utilized to their benefit without them always getting their fair share of like props and dues.
Definitely.
So in that sense, I understand why they feel the sense of they feel protective about something that they started and that they own, you know?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I understand where this criticism comes from. But like I said earlier, like it's fair for you to criticize if the person participating in the culture doesn't fully understand where it stems from
Right.
and are not willing to understand. You have every right to criticize it, but it's not fair for you to just paint all of us in like the same brush. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, cause just because you're black or just because you're Latino, that doesn't mean like you're more hip hop than me, or like you understand more shit about hip hop than me.
Yeah.
That's like me saying like, yo, I'm a white belt taekwondo, and then this black kid who's been doing taekwondo fucking for 25 years of his life, like I'm more, like I know more shit about taekwondo than you just because I'm Korean and taekwondo is Korean.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
fair. You know what I mean? That's not like a fair argument.
Right.
Same shit with like, if a Japanese chef who's been fucking making gnocchi and pasta his whole fucking life,
Yeah.
like, is like amazing at making pasta, and you wouldn't have known if this was made by a Japanese guy until you fucking saw his face, and you argue that like, yo, he's not a real pasta maker because he's not Italian. That's not like a fair argument for me. You know what I'm saying?
That's like also something my mom used to tell me, like, oh, pasta came from Chinese people anyway.
Yeah, and Chinese people like to own shit. Like they like to say that they made everything.
That literally, that's like what my
like,
mom always said.
Chinese-
She was like, we made pizza before the
Yeah,
Italians
we did
did.
everything. 5,000 years of history, like yada yada yada. Chinese
Yeah.
people like to say. I mean, they call themselves Zhongguo, which literally means the Middle Kingdom.
Yeah.
They're like
Your
the most.
Chinese is actually still really good. Like the accents.
Yeah,
there.
their sense of pride. It kind of like it's something that I think is admirable. That's a whole nother discussion. But
is
like
definitely.
the Chinese pride is something that I'm like I look at it like because Koreans and Japanese people we, especially because of Confucianism, like we have been taught like yo you got to be humble, you got to
Yeah.
be obedient, you got to respect filial piety, and you got to know your place. The wave of Chinese people that came after like Cultural Revolution, after Mao Zedong was just like, yo, fuck Confucianism, and
Yeah.
you're only gonna make one child per household. It made every kid feel like they're the best shit in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why you see like these Chinese international students, like they're cocky as fuck, They're like, Asian American issues? What the fuck does that mean? I'm like Chinese. I'm the best. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
yeah.
so interesting because my parents are from Taiwan.
Right. Yeah,
but
see, that's different.
They're always just like, we're Chinese, but as soon as we're with anyone from mainland, which is like, no, we're Taiwanese.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like,
Because I
hey.
think there is that sense of arrogance. That
I mean,
they're just like,
totally.
no.
Yeah, totally. And then, like Taiwan and Taiwan, a lot of them, I mean, damn, I know this is a history podcast and we're going on a tangent, but
Oh,
a lot
no,
of
no
Taiwanese
worries.
people, like, they kind of had to dip from China because of the revolution.
Yeah,
And
my
a lot of them were
grandparents
like
were them.
upper middle class.
Yeah.
Were like, they were from the nobility and shit. So they already came from like money when they
Yeah.
dipped to China.
Yeah.
So, and those people made babies and made more generations after that. So of course they're gonna look at like these mainlanders like, oh, y'all just started making money, Like,
Yeah, my grandpa was he was like one of the top people of like the telegram or telephone company,
Right.
and he was like captured. He was like in prison, you know, for being. He wasn't even like a nationalist or a communist. He was just like a high ranking person.
High-ranking
They're just
person.
like, you're giving like nationalist information to.
Right.
Yeah, and that's how he had to
Exactly.
flee to Taiwan.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
well.
Yeah. So it's like, of course, Taiwan, they're gonna look at like Daluren, like, oh, you guys are fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
we're not Daluren.
It's classism. You know what I'm saying? But like, I get it. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
going back to that statement, like, yeah, when people do criticize it, I think that's kind of what my sentiment is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, especially when people say, yo, why do you talk like that?
That was actually
That's
my
like,
next question.
yeah,
Have you ever faced any backlash?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I did. And for me, like, I'm not putting up a front right now. Like, this is not something that like I learned at like an after school academy.
You're not
you know?
Iggy Azalea.
Like I'm not. You catch me any time of the day. This is how I'm gonna reply to you. You know, and it's a culmination of New York. It's a culmination of my upbringing in Queens. It's a culmination of the type of music that I listened to and the type of culture that I wanted to be a part of, which was like 90s New York rap music.
Right.
Like Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang, and Nas. And you mix all that shit up, you're going to get Jaeki. So it's not something that like, it wasn't like pre-designed. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, I'm not like some fucking like avatar, like, you know, that you just like, okay, we're gonna put this clothes on, and you know, I'm not like a video game character that you created. You know,
Right.
This is like a natural progression of all the shit that I like, you know, really got into. Like, I met this Korean kid from New Orleans. He fucking talks like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
There are
so like,
Asians
or are
out
you gonna
there.
argue
Yeah.
like, yo, this kid is like adopting white culture? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't
definitely.
make sense. Like, my homies in LA, like Korean homies in LA, they talk Mexican. They talk like, you know, Chicanos and shit. What up, fool? And I'm like, yo,
It's how
like
there's,
it's
like,
like their upbringing and their identity and then the regions that they're from is what really influences you.
Yeah.
Like, I go, yo, that's mad crazy. That's something like New York taught me, not, you know, necessarily hip hop culture or black culture.
Right.
You know, like my homies in Oakland, Korean homies and Chinese or like Filipino homies, they, yo, fool, that's hella, yo, whatever, that's hella this. That's some like, you know, Bay Area shit. So it's not, it's more regional, it's more local culture that has influenced me more so than me putting up a front.
Yeah.
Now, if I like, I don't know, like grew up in like somewhere like in the cut in like Long Island or somewhere in the cut in Jersey, and like the only influences I had were like, I don't know, like some Korean church, and like all my friends are straight up fresh off the boat looking kids. Then like I come through, like one day I'm talking like this, and then the next day I put up a different accent, and then that's just like, yo, you're putting up a front, you know,
Right.
like you're faking the funk right now.
Definitely.
But like, fortunately or unfortunately, this is how Jaeki is 24/7. I mean, I might code switch when I'm going like a job interview, but I think the code switch doesn't even last 5 minutes. You know, that's like the expiration. You know,
Yeah, and I feel
5
like
minutes is up.
Code switching is like almost a survival mechanism too,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
usually with other white people. You're just like, oh, okay, I gotta.
Yeah, and I
speak a
wanna
certain way, yeah.
code switch so white people feel more comfortable, but I haven't been that good at it.
Why do you say that? Why do you want them to feel more comfortable? Like, why do you?
Why do
think-
I why did I want to make them
Yeah,
feel more?
why-
Why
yeah.
did I want to make them more? Because I think essentially, like you said, a survival mechanism. You know what I'm saying? If there's a white person that is hiring, you want to present yourself in a way that's like, you want to make them feel like, okay, like this guy could hang. I could hang with this guy, and just capitalism at the end of the day. You know.
Oh, that's so sad, but
Yeah,
it's the
but
truth.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is the
Yeah.
truth, you know. So, you know, but vice versa. Like, if I'm like a fucking conglomerate owner in like a Japanese tech company, and like a white guy wants to have some of my business, yeah, you better fucking like bow. You know what I'm saying? Or learn how to use a chopstick.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've taught so many white people how to use chopsticks.
Oh, that's tight.
I feel like that's like my one thing. my
You know,
niche.
but you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like, it's all like, it's all like it's all dependent on like the situation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want listeners to take away from this? Like anything you haven't mentioned before from this, either from
The history?
or
Okay.
from everything we've talked about?
I think more so than ever, like because of the internet once again, like I think the cultural shifts that are happening, it's at an exponential rate that has never been it's so crazy that so many different steps are being taken within our own lifetime. So I think it's important that we embrace it. For older folks that feel like y'all wasn't with me shooting in the gym, like y'all wasn't there when I was like, there's definitely like a sense of like bitterness. And I think I kind of have some of that too. Like when I see like these younger like Asian American rap cats, like, you know, doing certain things, I'm like, okay, like y'all only started this shit. Like, so there's definitely a sense of bitterness that I feel like all of us have. Doesn't matter which generation. Like, if you're gonna get old, you're gonna feel a sense of bitterness. And I think that bitterness, it's a huge hindering factor.
Yeah.
And I think we shouldn't be bitter. We should be more embracing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the only way progress happens. So for all the OGs out there, just be more embracive. For all the young ones coming up, like, be more respectful. And that's the only way that we could all like harmoniously take steps forward. You know what I mean? Because I look at it like this, right? I this is something that I always preach whenever, like, well, not preach, but like I always mention. Because and I only say this because you say that you're passionate about Asian American or representation as a whole, right? So I talk to people about like why there needs to be more Asian Americans in entertainment, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. Because people behind the camera is really the ones that's making the decisions for who's
Definitely.
going to stand in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So we need more writers, producers, publicists, people cutting the checks, all of that.
Right.
That's the only way like more Asian American representation could happen.
Yeah.
And Asian American representation, it's going to lead to Asian American representation in politics. The reason why Barack Obama got elected, of course, the fact that he's a fucking charming killer of a politician.
Yeah. And I have like a blind like faith and love for him. That's
Right,
just
which
like,
I think is unfair.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Because at the
know.
end of the day, he's human.
Yeah, and he's definitely made mistakes. But I'm just
It was just like
love him.
I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
But the reason why I think one of the main reasons why he was elected is because America didn't feel a sense of discomfort of seeing a black man being their representation.
Right.
And the reason why I think it has a lot to do with hip hop. In the 90s especially. The voters that really went out to vote for Barack Obama in 2008, these people, where was it, 2007, I guess, right? Right.
2008 was when he was elected?
Yeah. So these people, they grew up fucking watching Michael Jordan, like, take the Chicago Bulls to the championships. They grew up watching, like, Tupac. They wanted to be like Biggie, these white middle America kids.
For sure.
So for them, like,
Yeah.
seeing, like, a black person representing for them, it wasn't like, there wasn't a sense of discomfort as it probably was maybe in the 80s and the 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
think popular culture influences politics.
Yeah, I think media and
As a whole,
movies,
yeah.
they inform culture.
Exactly.
And vice
Like,
versa.
my mom still thinks George Clooney is hot as fuck. Or
Yeah.
Clark Gable is amazing, like, or Sean Connery is dope. You know what I
Right.
mean? And the reason why is because Western media has influenced Asians in Asia for decades.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's going to have a mental effect on you. So I think, and that's why, and when like Barack Obama got elected, like prominent figures in black media, or media in general, like Oprah was like tearing up, like Russell Simmons, despite the current rape accusations that's going on, like, he's a pioneer in hip hop, and he really championed that because he understood that, this is like the progress of all of us as a community and as a race, it's gonna need to take.
Right.
And Barack Obama was like kind of like the culmination and the form of validation for all of that, right? So, and if you have like people that look like you representing for you in politics, that's only gonna affect how much more money that you're gonna make as a community as a whole, or how much more power you're gonna have. Like, for instance, like Barack Obama was the first president that really fucking addressed the fact that there's a huge issue in the prison industrial complexes.
Yeah.
And just the fact that a president actually addressed that, it's like now finally trickling down, like 6, 7, 8 years later, the reforms that are happening in prison industrial complexes. Of course, it's not happening at the rate that it should be. But the fact that it happened, it's going to see improvement.
Right.
And it's going to make more African Americans feel comfortable of pursuing entrepreneurial pursuits, or make more money, or invest in their communities more. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's like an ecosystem that you're creating, right? So now, like, Asian Americans figured out how to make money. Like, we have the biggest percentage of middle class. We have the highest college graduation rates. We have the highest disposable income spending rate. You know what I'm saying? And then we have like the most fucking middle management level people in every tech company and every fucking like financial institutions.
Yeah.
But we don't see enough in media representation. We don't see enough in political representation.
What do you think about, this is my new favorite person that I've been following, Andrew Yang, who is running for president.
Yeah,
in
I mean, to
2020.
be honest, I don't know enough about Andrew Yang. I only
Right.
seen a few interviews for me to really make a judgment. But the fact that he is even running,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think that's what really it's important. Whether he wins or not, the fact that he's running is what it's gonna give courage to people watching him to feel like, okay, I could do this too. And then I feel like, okay, not only is he a successful businessman, but it's like he wants to take that energy into providing something for the community as a whole.
Yeah.
That in itself is something that I feel like it needs to be championed.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Everything is interconnected. So this is what I always like tell my homies in like finance and shit, like making like $250,000, you know, doing what they do at my age. Like, yo, like, listen, man, just because you making all this bread, it's great. But if you don't get the right representation in media, if you don't get the right reach in politics, your kid is still gonna be bullied with the same shit that you probably went through.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So put some respect to Jaeki's name for making bad rap, yo.
No, I really appreciate
so like
that too.
that's what I tell them, you know what I'm saying? So that's why representation is important, because it's all cohesive. It's the more representation you get, more political representation you get. More
Yeah.
political representation, the more opportunities for you to make money.
Yeah, and just
You
like
know?
on a psychological level too, like if you don't, this thing called symbolic annihilation,
Right.
where if you don't see yourself, you feel like you actually believe that you don't matter. And I think
Totally.
like that as a whole affects the community as well.
Totally.
Of just like, if we have so many people not believing like we matter and our voice matters,
Right.
then like how are we even going to get to media representation and
Right.
political reach and things like that? And I think that's something important for our future kids, because I think about my future kids all the time. I'm
Right.
just like,
Do you
would-
have children?
No, I don't.
Okay,
but
okay,
I
got you.
think about like, oh,
For
I
your
definitely
unborn child.
want,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for
yeah.
my kids. I was like, I don't ever want them to feel any ways that I felt before of like not mattering or
Right.
not having a voice. So I think it's really important that we keep that going for our future generations.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's much better than how it is. It's every generation you're seeing improvement, but you know, we need more, definitely. And yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Do you have any personal projects going on that you would like to
Right
plug?
now, I just like to shout out Alumni. You know, we have multiple locations in New York. It's a lifestyle boutique specializing in sneakers, like a lot of dope fashion products. The latest location we opened in Flushing, Queens, and it was very strategic, but also like personal in the sense that like Flushing is somewhere that I grew up at, like Queens, Flushing. You know, that's where I grew up, and I always kind of thought to myself like, what did like a 16-year-old Jaeki wanted that didn't exist in Queens? And that was like a premium lifestyle boutique where I'm like cool with the staff, where all the dope shit is there, and like occasionally there's like an industry event that comes through with like artists that I want to check out. That whole entire experience was very exclusive to like cooler parts of Manhattan, like Soho and Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And that didn't really exist in anywhere outside of like Manhattan or even parts of Brooklyn. So the fact that we were able to do that in Queens is something that I want to emphasize, and I hope, you know, it continues to do well. And then, of course, the podcast, $6.99 per pound. We talk a shitload about representation here, but yeah, that's like an extension of, you know, us contributing to that manifesto or that mindset of
Yeah.
like continuing on with representation. And yeah, that's it. That's it for now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I usually have like 6 different things that I shout out, but right now it's just Alumni and $6.99 per pound. Check those out.
I'm so glad we got to collaborate too, because I love $6.99 per pound,
Thank
and
you
I'll
so
definitely
much.
check out Alumni.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And I also loved Bad Rap.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, Bad Rap's still on Netflix. I don't know what the streaming numbers are, honestly, because Netflix is like very secretive about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought they like were public about their
Nah,
numbers.
not at all. That's kind of how they have the power.
Because that didn't they say when that the Blindfold movie came out with Sandra Bullock?
Yeah,
What is that?
Bird Box.
Bird Box,
Yeah.
right? They were just like 1 billion people streamed it in a day. Like, wasn't that the headline or something?
Shit, I don't know, but they're very secretive about their streaming numbers.
Oh,
That's
good to
kind of how they
know.
have the upper hand when it comes down to negotiations.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's
so,
like a whole other episode to
yeah,
talk
for real,
about.
for real. But like, yeah, those guys are very secretive. But you know, Bad Rap is still on there. So yeah, if you're taking a lunch break or have nothing to do over the weekend, check it out.
Yeah. And where can people find you and follow you?
You could just check me out on Instagram as my government, JAEKICHO. Yeah, just I'm very communicative. Yeah, like, you know, you could reach me, you could talk to me, shoot me a DM, say what you gotta say. That's it. I mean, I'm not on TikTok yet. Still trying to figure that shit
I
out.
don't get it. I feel like I missed that wave.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah, you could check me out on Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and
Thank
thank
you so
for
much
the
for having me,
conversation. It
Sandie.
was so great. Yeah.
Sorry once again I'm late.
No worries. It was your birthday.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Are you doing anything for your birthday?
I'm just having dinner tonight. Yeah.
Yeah,
just
that's
having dinner.
awesome.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. I was thinking about planning like a week long, because I don't usually do birthdays.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, since I'm turning 30, I should do something a little bit more interesting. And then that's kind of the thing with, like, I think age and just living in New York, just being in this fast pace. Like, I forgot that it was my birthday until like this Tuesday.
Damn. Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh shit, I'm turning 30 this week. Oh fuck, I didn't plan anything. So
Yeah.
that was it.
Any existential crises that you run into, or are you excited?
Did you? Like, I don't want to ask
Oh,
your age,
I'm 28, but I'm like
Okay.
really excited to be 30. I'm just
Okay.
like, I'm done with my 20s. I was like a fucking idiot all throughout my 20s, like
Oh,
just
wow.
partying too much, drinking too much, and then like went to drama school, and I'm just like, I'm
What?
done. I don't
Okay.
want to do this
but
anymore.
that's dope.
Yeah, now I'm like living the
I don't
creative
know.
life.
Like, I was thinking to myself, like, have I done enough? Because obviously, I think we all have like our dreams and expectations of like, okay, I'm gonna be like this when I'm 30. I'm gonna be like this when I'm 40. But I think a lot of the issues that we face is that we don't really have like a set. Like, it's not like well defined enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're like, oh, I'm gonna be rich when I'm 30. But like, okay, how rich? Like, define rich.
Right.
So I think I did everything I wanted to do before I'm 30.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to make a film. I wanted to work at a magazine that I grew up reading. I wanted to do my own business. So yeah, I think I did everything that I wanted to do before I'm 30. So in that sense, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But of course, like, there's always a sense of like, maybe I should have done more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, always. But I think you've done a lot, and
I think I did all right.
It's great.
Yeah. I think I did all right. I mean, but yeah, like, it's also like you also get to compare yourself to other people constantly.
The upward comparison.
Even
right?
though you're like, even though I'm like confident as fuck, like, there's always gonna be subconsciously you're like, oh shit, like, this kid is 30. He fucking bought $1 million condo. You know, like what the fuck? Like, oh shit, like, my homie, this kid is 30. He's a multi-millionaire singer in South Korea. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you start like But then it becomes endless, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I don't know when I stopped doing that. I don't know. I was just like, I just don't care about what most
Right.
people do. Not in like a malicious way, just
Right.
like I feel like success is so nonlinear
Right.
that I'm just like, because like I did work at a corporate job before, and
Right.
then like, yeah, I should have like followed like a linear trajectory from there, but I was just like, that doesn't make me happy, and like I'd rather be in this unstable creative field that is fulfilling and fun and exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely go into the rabbit hole and be like, oh, there's like someone else who's like a better actor than me.
Yeah.
Like they're 23 and they're like on Netflix, all right? Or
right,
you know,
right, right.
you know what I mean?
Are you an actor?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm an actor.
Got you.
Yeah,
Got you.
an actor, writer, podcaster.
Oh shit, that's dope.
So I feel like I identify more as a writer than an actor.
Okay.
Just because that's where my main love of storytelling came from, is from writing. And I feel like with acting, it's so, as an industry, it's so fragile. It's just like, and it feels like it shouldn't be, like it should be about the art of storytelling, but it feels like it's based on like Instagram followers and like
Right.
celebrity. And I think it often gets confused with that. And
Right.
like, I never wanted that. I just wanted to tell stories. And like,
Right.
I'm all about like, how can we just tell stories where it's just like, where it's representative. So I feel like with writing, there is also more control of that, and there's also more creativity with that. But that's also
Totally.
just my personal opinion.
Nah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think, but in social media following, that applies to every industry now.
Yeah.
Every industry that's somewhat creative.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
even if you want to be like a successful chef, for you to get notoriety or any sort of like press coverage, like, okay, how many followers does this person have? You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Such an unfortunate thing, but so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a way, like, some could argue, like, oh, that's unfair. Like, this person is not as technical. This person is not as good. But, well, they were good at one thing, marketing themselves.
Yeah.
And
It's all a business. It's all
Yeah.
capitalism.
yeah, marketing is crucial.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's important. So
definitely.
cool. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And this is Now in Color. You can find us on Now in Color Podcast on Instagram and anywhere you get podcasts.
iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere.
Everywhere.
Now in Color.
I do have one more thing. Dylan Underwear is a panty made to empower women.
Oh, shit. That's what's up.
Dylan is completely seamless and comfortable and is made to have you feel confident and sexy all day long. Made locally in New York by women for women. New styles are coming out this April, so you have to sign up for the newsletter at dylanunderwear.com and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Dylan_underwear for live updates. And we will be receiving a promo code as soon as they go on sale.
Oh, shit. Yo, make
Yeah.
sure you check out Dylan Underwear. Make sure you gift it to your loved ones, your side pieces, especially. And then, if you just a perverted dude that wants to sniff underwear, just buy a new one instead of trying to buy like a resale one for like $1,000. Did you know that's a real thing?
I did not know. Oh, wait. In Japan, don't they have like vending machines?
Yeah. But nah, but like I heard in America, like somebody was just telling me the other day, like this homegirl that we mutually know, like, was like, yo, she sells her underwears to these perverted dudes, and like,
I mean,
it's
if
like
you're
$1,000 and
getting
shit.
money from-
You know what I'm
just
saying?
like-
That's wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, but yeah, shout out to Dylan Underwear.
Yeah. Shout out to Dylan Underwear. You don't have to sell your.
You don't have to sell your dirty drawers.
Or
you
you
know?
could.
Or
through
you could
Dylan.
after you rock
Yeah.
Dylan. It's like almost like, not only are you fulfilling a pervert's fantasy, but you're also empowering women by doing so, by supporting
Exactly.
Dylan Underwear.
And you're getting money.
Exactly. Shout out to them.
$1,000. Man. Well, now I know what to do when I hit.
All else
Yeah.
fails.
When all else
you know what
fails.
to do, Sandie.
When my acting career goes nowhere.
Goes nowhere. You know what to do. Sell your underwear.
Exactly. But check out Dylan Underwear.
Shout out to Dylan Underwear.
I feel like I'm always having the worst advertising, but she likes it. She's like, make it organic.
This is organic as you can get.
Exactly.
Dylan Underwear. Shout out to y'all.